Hello guys, Lance Martin, Coldwell Banker Town & Country and the Martin Group. We are back for another snapshot, our August 2025 edition, and we will jump right in. Same QR code. This will basically get you to the Lance Martin link tree and the real estate market forecast link tree. All that stuff has been there, all the links to everything we do for a while. We are way behind. I should say I am way behind on promoting our 2025 year annual market forecast, but we have a date, September 10th. We are going to be 9 to noon, and we finally have a venue. If this looks familiar to you, this is the corporate offices of Highland Fairview. This is Ido Benzivi's place on the east end of Moreno Valley. It is absolutely gorgeous with their little mini Bellagio water fountain out front. At any rate, so we're way behind on marketing this, so if this is something that you're interested in, all I can do is tell you to get your ticket early. This venue only holds about 150 people, and frankly, on a normal year, 150 people in attendance would be an extreme disappointment. So if you plan on attending live, keep an eye out. Matter of fact, I'll go back two slides. You can go to this QR code right now. The Eventbrite tree is a tree, goodness gracious. The Eventbrite link is available for you to basically just reserve tickets and get all the information there, whether you want to sponsor or just attend in person. So again, September 10th, in live, goodness gracious, we're not going to cut, we're going to keep going. Live in-person event. We will be at Ido Benzivi's Highland Fairview facility, and we'll hope to see you on September 10th, which is only about a month away. So let's go ahead and jump right into our Inland Southern California market update. And I gotta tell you, man, I've been doing these for years, and this is one of those periods of time over the last several months where it's like things are getting interesting. Truth be told, I can go for 2 years in a row, and it's like, it's kind of the same stuff. We just kind of seem to be on this train marching in whatever direction we're going, which up until recently has been pretty much the sky's the limit. Having said that, we've had issues with pending transactions and a variety of things, inventory levels, interest rates, the Fed, everything that affects basically residential real estate everywhere in the country. But I'm telling you, the way things are stacking up, it feels a little different. So let's jump right in. So first of all, median sales price, you can click in here. There's 15 years of data for the 4 counties. If you go all the way to the far end, these little tails pointing downward indicate basically month over month, or in some cases 2 months of very modest but price declines, and price declines nonetheless, with the exception of, I think the green is Riverside County. So if you look at Riverside County, it's basically flat. So the last couple months for Riverside County have been flat. I think the median's 530. We're going to find out in a minute. But if you're kind of a geek with this stuff, you can click into the slide deck. It's an interactive little chart. You can hover your mouse over it and go back for 15 years all the way to, although this is a 5-year chart, if you click in, it goes all the way back for 15 years to whatever that's going to be, 2010, I suppose it is. So at any rate, so where are we? Basically, prices are up in LA and Orange County year over year, July 2025 compared to July 2024. And down ever so slightly in Riverside County and San Bernardino County. So up a couple of percents in LA and Orange, down 1.5% to 2% in San Bernardino and Riverside. But if you go back and look at last month's snapshot, these numbers are almost meaningless from a standpoint, oh my gosh, there's a trend up, there's a trend down. No, it's just a choppy period right now. So I don't remember what last month's was. I think it was also choppy, a little up, little down. I would expect this trend to continue. However, I forecast or predicted, or whatever you want to call it, about 3 months ago, that we will end the year 2025 with a very modest price reduction from basically December to December, or January 2025 to December of 2025, the 12-month window. And I think we're on course for that. I don't think it's going to be anything majorly significant, but if today was December 31st of this year, and these were the year-over-year numbers, I'd say, okay, I get that. Maybe a point up, maybe a point down. But again, not unhealthy, because we've seen ridiculous appreciation values, frankly, in COVID, 20, 21, 22, still appreciation in 23 and 24. And frankly, even in 25, if you kind of look through from January through, we've seen some modest improvements, but modest nevertheless. So this one is just pulsing at you. This one is what these numbers are compared to. So at any rate, basically property values for the most part, let's just call them flat year over year. A couple points up, a couple points down. I put this chart up 2 months ago. I haven't touched it. It's the exact same chart. And I just isolated this period from April 2022 to November 22 where we saw property values decline. I put that up a couple of months ago because I felt like we were in that kind of space where we could potentially see some property values decrease. I still think we're in that space, although there's some interest rates changes that are positive and it could change everything, but it still feels like we're in a little bit of a pullback situation. So I'm going to stick with that for now. And frankly, this being August, by the way, those are July numbers. Today is August 7th. Generally, things are choppy between here and not just the end of the year, but into January and February. So what do we got? We got 6 months ahead of us with a little bit of choppiness maybe more defined better or as softness in the marketplace. So you see a little bit of pullback, a little bounce back, a little pullback. So we shall see. The supply and demand numbers, new listings, these are brand new listings, just came onto the market into the month of July. And in every single county, they are down. But that's not unusual. We don't normally get a whole lot of new listings in July. And quite honestly, we don't normally get a whole lot of new listings between the summertime all the way between now and into as much as March of next year. We tend to slow down new listing wise. But nevertheless, new listings are down. You can click on that chart if you want it. This is the year over year, basically flat, almost 10%, 5%, and 3%. So again, new listings down from a year ago. Does that mean much? I don't know. I don't think that means a whole heck of a lot. But the overall trend of all listings is a little bit more interesting, and I want to put this in perspective because there's a lot of discussion out there that inventory is building, and it's building to an unhealthy level. We got a lot of houses for sale, and we don't have a lot of buyers. Basically, interest rates are suppressing the buyer demand. So interest rates very well may be suppressing buyer demand, but we don't have a lot of inventory on the market. It feels like that just because things are not moving very quickly, but we really don't have a lot of inventory. Having said that, wait a minute, Lance, you're going to show me some numbers that says it looks like we have some inventory. Well, this is up, up, up. Actually, interesting, Riverside County was the only county, and by the way, this is CRMLS data, but the only of the 4 counties that we tracked that actually showed a little bit of pullback in all inventory. But 2 things I want to point out. This is a 15-year chart. Just go back 10 years ago. There's a lot more houses on the market 10 years ago, and certainly a few more houses on the market than we had back in this range, say during COVID. And all I did was bitch and complain. We didn't have enough houses to sell. So this is a little bit of a broken record. But having said that, I want to put this in perspective. So year over year, 17% more, 18% more, 14% more, 23% more. So we have more listings staying on the market. Okay, that's fine. But just to kind of put that into perspective, if you go back and you take like 2022, for example, Los Angeles County, 11,200, well, 11,800, okay? It's not that much. It sounds like a big number, but LA County is a big county. So we definitely have more houses on the market. If you are a buyer, that's a plus. You certainly have more to choose from, but we certainly don't have a glut of inventory. What we just basically have is a stagnant, frozen marketplace from a buyer's standpoint, which brings us to our pending sales. Pending sales, again, record lows, nothing's changed. I've been talking, just all you got to do is basically look from about end of 2022, 2023, 2024, basically 2 years, almost 2.5 years now, where just look at where these charts are ranging compared to where they basically have traditionally been for the last decade. So pending sales, buyers and sellers coming together, opening up escrow, how I make a living. If you spend any time with me at all, I talk about how the real estate business model is kind of difficult right now. I use the word broken a lot. A big part of that is just we need to sell more houses. This is not more houses. This makes this very, very challenging marketplace. If you're in our industry, doesn't necessarily translate to buyers and sellers. This is just kind of the selfish analysis. We need more sales. So again, just look at that tailing off of those pending sales. It just continues. I've been saying this now for over a year, how painful it is to track the overall listings that are being sold and buyers are coming together. This is year over year, 31% lower, down, 27% down, 18% down, 27% down, okay? Now, if that wasn't painful enough, let's just, for example, let's just do LA County again. This is July of 2025, 2,101 transactions, and we have a 31% negative number from July of 2024. So let's just take 2,100. Let's go back to 2021. Well, that number was 4,646. Well, that's a lot more than 31%. That's about a what? A 60% reduction in sales from 2025 July compared to 2021 July. Now, granted, 2021 was a good year. We sold some houses. It was one of those weird COVID years. It was second year of COVID, and we're selling a lot of houses, a lot of demand. Interest rates are great. Everybody's in a different mindset. So when you look at this 31% number and say, wow, it's low, well, you go back a couple years and it's even worse. So again, the pending sale drought just continues, which is such an interest rate driven issue with all, and prices, okay? We got higher prices. It's pushing a lot of people out of the market from an affordability standpoint. And you compound that with interest rates at a higher level, which have improved. We'll talk about that in a second. And it's just kind of a double whammy when it comes to buyers' ability to buy or even their incentive to buy. This is the same chart I put up 2 months ago. I actually didn't change it, but I think it proves the point. You've got the green little dots up at the top, and this talks about basically when sales were peaking, okay? And you look at these peaks over the last 15 years, and then look how low these peaks are over the last 3. We were up here, and now we're down here. And then you've got sales troughing, basically the bottom. I didn't put the red dots all the way across the bottom, but our basically sales number continue to kind of basically nosedive in what we normally would consider the peak selling season. April, May, June, let's call it July. So those are those 4 dots down at the bottom. We're not supposed to be down in the cellar in April, May, June, and July. We're supposed to be at the top in April, May, June, and July. We're supposed to be down at the bottom. All of these other little bottom numbers are normally trending right around December. So our trough of sales started way early this year, which is why I continue just to, cry in my beer over the fact that we just need more houses to sell. And that trend continues. And I don't believe it's going to get any better between now and probably February. So it is what it is. That does, pose some opportunity depending upon where you are, and potentially some pain depending upon where you are in the marketplace. Days on market. This is SEER MLS data. I really need to talk to Art Carter, and I need to talk to Mark Dowling. I feel like I'm doing something wrong when I pull this number, and it casts doubt on some of the stuff I'm doing, only because I believe these numbers are low. Average days on market, 33 days, 32 days, 49 days, and 45 days in each of the 4 counties we track. I think that's close, but it feels like those numbers are a little low. Again, I need to kind of verify that. But nevertheless, again, if you want to go back and compare historically to where we are before, it's still not crazy. I mean, to have a house on the market for a month or 2 months before it goes into escrow, hey, okay. It wasn't that long ago. Well, maybe it was, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 25 years ago. I'm dating myself. But, having properties on the market for 4 or 5 months was not that unusual. But it certainly has been unusual for the last decade. So those are our days on market trends. Our next chart is month supply trend. And again, same thing, month supply trend, those are trending up. 4.3, 3.5, 4.2, 5.4 in San Bernardino. That's kind of an all-time high for San Bernardino, at least for the last 8-9 years. There was this odd little spike in San Bernardino. I meant to go back and kind of take a look at what happened with month supply in San Bernardino. Something anomaly happened in that particular month. But on balance, everything else tends to track. Month supply is increasing, days on market are increasing. Makes sense, right? We've got more houses, fewer sales. They're basically staying on the market longer. So again, pretty much a broken record, but I just wish I wish the broken record would break and we'd go in a little bit different direction. I was talking to my good friend Stephen McKee, I think it was yesterday. So Stephen, this is for you. We pulled up a Spotlight City of Moreno Valley. I have an office in Moreno Valley. I've done a Spotlight City of Moreno Valley many times, but not recently. And Stephen said, hey, you know what? I look at Moreno Valley kind of as a barometer as to the entire Inland Empire market, and I believe I might be misquoting him a little bit, but the gist of it was it's a very broad-based market, and there's a lot of inventory there, and you can kind of potentially get a trend on what's going on in the entire Inland Empire based upon what Moreno Valley is doing. And whether you think Moreno Valley is a beautiful place to live, I live there, I have an office, I don't live there now, but I lived there for years, I have an office there, I raised a family in and around Moreno Valley. and I've had a great experience there. If you feel otherwise, it doesn't matter. The numbers stack up. If I lived in Orange County or even in the low desert, I wouldn't tune out because I'm looking at Moreno Valley numbers because they tend to kind of translate across the board. So the three things that we looked at in Moreno Valley are the same thing we look at every single month in the communities is pricing. We saw this nice run up, but what's happened in pricing in Moreno Valley in the last 12 months? Down 3.2%. If you look at the 4 counties I just did, Moreno Valley actually would be underperforming Riverside and San Bernardino by a point or so. LA and Orange would be outperforming Moreno Valley by 3 or 4, maybe 5 points. But again, a month from now, we run the same numbers, and I think they'd be very, very close. So as far as pricing is concerned, I think the trend is consistent, even though these numbers are a little bit more. If you come all the way out here, you'll find that the last couple months have been a little challenging with values. Again, nothing crazy. I'm not talking about crashes or collapses. Don't misunderstand me. But I'm just talking about pullback in values a little bit. We're seeing it. And by the way, you see it periodically throughout this 15-year chart. You can click into that slide back there, by the way, and do the same thing with this city as all the others. You can click in and see where it's at. And all of the other spotlight cities are on the deck. So any city I've done in the past, you can go to that, and the data's fresh. Even if I did it 6 months ago, you'll be able to see what's going on today. By the way, this little drop down, this coincides perfectly to that one slide where I showed the drop down pullback in values in 2022 from April to November. Exactly the same. So again, is anything crazy going on in pricing in Moreno Valley? No, not necessarily. How about active listings? There's 306 active listings in Moreno Valley. That's an 8% increase, but look how low we are. So if you want to take Moreno Valley, compare it to any of their counties, and say, oh, we've got an inventory glut. We just have a lot of houses on the market. No, we don't. 306 houses active on the market ending July is basically nothing. Having said that, that's certainly an improvement from what we had, a year or two ago. So, but it's not a large number. You got to be careful with this because this is, the Great Recession, housing crisis in 2008, gigantic foreclosures. So it's not really fair to look back at this because there's no comparison to where we are today. But if you want to go back another 10, 15, 20 years, I used to track inventory in the city of Moreno Valley for a decade. I didn't do it this way. I did it the old-fashioned way with basically an Excel spreadsheet and typed in numbers. But for the first 12, 15 years I operated in the city of Moreno Valley, there was about 1,500 listings on the market at any given time in an active status for a decade. So 306 listings, not a whole lot. And frankly, the city's bigger than it was, several years ago. And again, the story of pending sales, down. But again, Moreno Valley is outperforming. So those other counties were, 20, 30, 15, whatever percent it was. Well, Moreno Valley's pending sales are down as well, but not as bad as, say, the county in total or San Bernardino. I have to go back and take a look at what those numbers were, but I believe they were all larger than a 14% year-over-year decrease in sales. However, look what happened last month. That's a little spike upward in pending sales in the city of Moreno Valley. So if that's your area to do business, rock on. So at any rate, there's our market snapshot for Moreno Valley. So what's going on with interest rates? Okay, for those of you that have been paying attention, this is a quiz. Okay, when good news happens in the marketplace, the jobs report is good, the inflation report is good, things are coming down, whatever it happens to be, that generally can translate into bad news for the 10-year bond. And with 10-year bond, if that's bad news for the 10-year bond, well, that's potentially bad news for 30-year fixed mortgage rates. They don't track exactly, but there's enough of a correlation there. So last week, we had a jobs report come out. I don't remember exactly what the number was. If you track this stuff, you know better than I. The expected jobs were supposed to be 140,000 or something like that, and then the revision came in with 12,000 jobs added. Oh my God, things are horrible. The world is ending. Everybody reacts. Trump overreacts, in my opinion. I don't want to get political here, but overreacts, says, hey, you got to dismisses the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics as whatever. Total nonsense, in my opinion, but whatever. But that happened. Bad news. Well, bad news over there in the job market is good news for 30-year fixed mortgage rates. So almost immediately, That was translated into a lower 10-year bond, which translated into a lower 30-year fixed. So a week ago, Wednesday, Thursday, today's April 7th, so just say April, goodness gracious, August 7th, you go back to August 1st, that interest rate would have been 6.75, 6.8, okay? So what a difference a week makes. And in this particular case, what drove it was bad news in the bond or in the jobs market, okay? So you got to be careful. What's good is bad and what's bad is good, and it affects these things a lot differently. Having said that, if you're a buyer right now and you're getting ready to lock your loan, or you're getting ready to buy, and maybe the last time you checked with your agent at Coldwell Banker Town and Country and the Martin Group, you were looking at a qualification rate of 6.8 or 7%. You're like, oh, honey, that's too much. We can't do it. Well, you open your eyes, you blink your eyes, and you might have anywhere from 1/4 to 1/2 point better interest rate available to you. So rates have improved. So we shall see what that means. I had this Wells Fargo forecast up. I put this up about, I think about 6 months ago. I put the Wells Fargo forecast up because it seemed to feel correct. Well, to go back a slide, well, they're feeling pretty correct at the moment. So we'll see what happens. Anything could change between now and December 31st, and that's what this forecast is. Where will 30-year fixed mortgage rates land at the end of 2025? Wells Fargo and a variety of other forecasters out there, Mortgage Bankers Association, California Association, they're all within probably 1/4 to 1/2 point of one another. But this number is beginning to look pretty good, so we'll see what happens. We still got several months left to go before we see that. But I'll tell you, I like a 6.5% interest rate a heck of a lot better than I like a 6.9 or 7% interest rate. Having said that, we're still frozen. I haven't changed this chart either. We're frozen. So let's see what happens next month. Will a 6.5% interest rate pull people off the sidelines and get them to engage in the market? We're going to find out. I think the answer is yes, but I don't think it's going to be happening in large numbers. It just doesn't feel like it's going to move the needle too much at 6.5. Maybe at 6.25 it will. I certainly think if we can start posting interest rates in the low 6s, God forbid, high 5s, I think that changes everything. I really do. I think that changes the dynamic dramatically. So, but I still say we're frozen as it relates to the market. So what is my forecast? I changed this a couple of months ago, but I'm sticking with it. Prices up? No, prices are not going to be up. And again, this is my year-end projection. Flat to a little bit down, nothing crazy, but flat to a little bit down. We'll see if something crazy happens. I just don't feel it. Yes, inventory's up. Sales volume, not up. Okay, it's not happening. We're not going to see sales volume up. This, by the way, my initial forecast was early on in the year when I said sales volume was going to be up. That was January, February, March. It felt pretty good. Hey, we're coming out. Interest rates were okay. Everybody that I listened to was forecasting more sales for 2025. A lot of them are still forecasting more sales for 2025. I have no idea how anybody can forecast more sales in 2025. We don't have enough runway left. We have August, September. There's not enough runway to make up for the hole that we're in as far as pending sales. So, and I would love to be wrong on this one. Again, this is how I pay my bills. But there's no way in hell we're going to see more sales this year than we did last. It's just not going to happen. Mortgage rates, again, no idea, but we'll see. Look at this. A sustained 6.5% or lower will increase all of the above. I didn't change this forecast. This is what I've had for the last 3 months. When the first time I put this in, we weren't close to 6.5. Now we are. We'll see. So it has to be sustained. It can't just be 2 weeks, which is kind of what we've seen this rocky road. Okay, I added a slide here. I have to give full credit to Drew. My son, Drew, basically runs the real estate side of our operation of the Martin Group, and most of the clients that we work with, whether you're a buyer or a seller, work with Drew. I kind of stand in the back and do whatever I do. So we were in a sales meeting 2 days ago talking about this. We spent a lot of time in our sales meetings doing not sales type stuff, but business planning stuff. What's the market doing? And I made an observation that a lot of our office listings in-house were vacant. It's like, hey, I've got a vacant listing if anybody wants to hold the house open. I've got a vacant listing if anybody wants to hold the house open. So I thought, wow, that's very interesting. I hadn't been hearing a whole lot of vacant listings. So this is just totally anecdotal. It may not translate to anything. So Drew and I earlier today said the Moreno Valley properties, for example, 300 and whatever that was, 308 listings. 20% of those houses are vacant. Is that a big number? I don't know, but it's not a small number. So 20% of the homes available in Moreno Valley right now for sale are vacant. So just put that aside here just for a second. We're also taking a look at price reductions. We're seeing price reductions pretty much across the board on almost every price type, every category that we're seeing out there. So getting back, we'll get to this one here in a second. So you're seeing price reductions, you're seeing vacant listings. My question is if I have a vacant listing, why is that house vacant and how badly do I want to sell? So if it's vacant because I really need to sell, maybe I have job relocation, maybe I've got something going on in my life, maybe it's mom and dad's house and they've passed on, I don't know, whatever it is. But I tend to think that one of two things happen with these vacant listings that aren't selling. They come to us at Cobalt Property Management, which we would love your vacant listing if it's not selling. Let's put a tenant in there, let's see what the market does and come to the property management side. Or I suppose they could pull it off the market and do something else with it. Or they just reduce the price. Where's their motivation? How badly do they want to sell? So I'm keeping a very, very close eye on what are the vacant listings doing, and are we starting to see significant price reductions in that area? Because that could drive a lot, okay? If I live in my house, I got a lot of equity, hey honey, what do you think we sell? If we get our price, great, we'll sell. If we don't, we'll stay. I don't pay as much attention to them. They got tons of equity maybe. If they can sell, they will. If they can't, they'll stay. I don't know that that's going to be the case with the vacants. So I'm going to keep a very, very close eye on that. And then Drew had mentioned this as well. And again, this isn't a new phenomenon, but we haven't dealt with this in a decade or longer. So in our office, we're talking about escrows that are falling out. Buyers and sellers in escrow. The escrow is falling out for whatever reason. And why is it falling out? When we had 40, 50 offers on a property and a buyer finally got under escrow of that one property, our fallout ratio was almost zero. Those buyers were so excited to get in that house. They beat out 49 other people buying that house. They did whatever they could to keep that escrow together and close it. That is not the case anymore. We have buyers walking away from these transactions for a variety of reasons. Maybe they're a little bit nervous. Maybe they don't like the payment, maybe whatever it happens to be. But this is, again, I got to give Drew credit on this because I hadn't really thought about this in a long time, and he kind of kicked something in my memory banks. So I'm a buyer, I'm in escrow right now. I'm in escrow for whatever I'm in escrow for, $800,000 in Claremont, okay? And I'm going to close escrow in 2, 3, 4 weeks. But what do buyers do, whether they're in escrow or not? They're on Zillow all day, every day, looking at houses. It doesn't matter that they already bought a house. It doesn't matter that they're in escrow. They're still on Zillow or whatever app they use, Realtor.com or ColdwellBanker.com, and they're scrolling through listings, and what do they see? They see potentially a price reduction on a house that's very similar to the house that they're in escrow with, or maybe it's a little nicer than the house they're in escrow with. And that's going to play with a lot of buyers' minds, okay? And that could potentially be something very, very interesting to keep an eye out, because we are seeing more cancellations. Are we seeing cancellations for that reason? I don't know. But these categories of vacant listings, price reductions, and cancellations from people who are in escrow, and I want to know, why are you canceling? If you're canceling because you couldn't get your financing, whatever, or the inspection contingencies weren't any good, something was wrong with the swimming pool, that's fine. That happens all the time. But if you're canceling because you found another house that you liked better than the house you're in escrow for, and it was less expensive or maybe had more features, that's a different story. So I'm keeping a really close eye on that. So we shall see. I'm going to be talking a lot about this, trying to get more data here over the next several months. So that basically brings us to the end. Just a reminder, our 2025 real estate market forecast is about a month away. I am way behind on marketing this. So if you're in my world, and if you're watching this video, you're kind of in my world, I'm going to apologize in advance because I am going to blow you up for the next 30 days with just ridiculous amount of marketing and pieces to hopefully get you in person to this event. If you can't make it in person, however, we will video it just like we've always done. Adam and his crew will be out at Ito's facility at Highland Fairview. We'll video the whole thing and we'll get it posted sometime after the week after. So at any rate, we hope to see you on September 10th. Have a great August, and thank you for watching.